Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. After experiencing multiple tragic losses, our next guest turned her pain into purpose and is now working to help others heal from their past. We welcome the host of the Soul Talks podcast, Theresa Bruno. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's so nice to be with you, Hannah. Thank you so much for all the good that you do in our world.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. Well, can you share a little bit of your own personal story and how it inspired you to take on this new podcast venture?
Yeah, certainly. I had two back-to-back losses, one much smaller than the other, but I had to shutter a beloved fine jewelry business due to fraud. And so I had that loss, and people who've had business losses, it can really cut deep. We deal with shame, we deal with guilt. Why didn't I make it work? That sort of thing. But that was a small loss compared to just a few months later, my precious husband took his life. So, you kind of your whole life, sort of the ground goes out from underneath you. Nothing sort of makes sense for a while. So I've spent the last 5 years of my life working my way through a survival journey. And about a year and a half ago, I realized, I have learned a lot of tools along the way. And I feel it's so important for us when we've been through any kind of survival. I always like to say, sharing our pain lessens its power. And so I wanted to put my story out there. I wanted to create a space through the podcast where others could kind of see, oh my gosh, she survived a lot. I'm surviving a lot. I can do it. She's still here. She's still standing. She still gets up in the morning and makes her coffee, just to give hope and to give space to discuss some really tough topics.
Yeah, and you never know that once you start sharing your story, there are so many people who often, unfortunately, right, can relate because they've suffered maybe a similar tragedy or are working through something. I want to ask you about one of those things you've learned about acknowledging emotions and processing pain, because that can be really scary in the moment when your feelings, they just feel so big.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always tell somebody, especially in the very beginning of your journey, whatever's happened to you, just do whatever you have to do. If you need to sleep, sleep. If you need to eat, eat. If you need to sob and cry, it is okay. But in terms of processing pain, I would say two things. One thing I learned about grief is that it's not like it's 2 weeks and done. Our culture doesn't give us a lot of time to grieve. We don't really have language around death and grieving. So I learned that with grief, you learn to walk alongside it. You kind of have to learn to eat with it and drink with it and bathe with it and sleep with it. It's always there. In terms of processing pain, the thing that I really encourage people to do is to connect to others. If you have a trusted group of friends, if you have family members you trust and you're willing to share what you're going through, processing pain, grief, sorrow it's just so important to have other human connection and not to isolate.
And usually are people there who want to help you, right? Even if they're not exactly sure what that looks like, once you can open up and kind of make that connection, you really find out how loved you are.
Yeah, that's very true. I have a trusted group of girlfriends. I call them my kitchen cabinet, my board members. They sit in my kitchen and drink coffee with me. Um, and it's a very different thing being a single woman who has lost her husband than being a couple, part of a couple. And my friends have come out and championed me and loved me and held me when I couldn't stand up. They have been such a huge contributor to my survival. So reach out to those you trust.
Well, and I like what you said earlier about just focusing on what you need, what's going to get you through today and into tomorrow, because people sometimes maybe overload themselves and they make these lofty goals and here's what I want things to look like, but that might not be the most healthy mindset to put yourself in.
I think it's really hard initially in the first year or so to, even to have goals that stretch out very far. I started with, could I just get out of the bed and open the drapes and have, just be grateful that I was looking out the window that day? Could I make my coffee? It sounds trivial and small, but when you are in deep grief, the little things are really big things. The other thing I would say to your listeners is Honor your journey. If you're one day in or a week in or a year or two in, sit and look at yourself and how far you've come. Honor where you are today. Because I think so often we're always looking out in front, where do I need to be? But if you just look and go, oh my gosh, I've done a really good job. I've transformed myself in this journey. The other thing I think that happens when you can honor your journey and you can acknowledge it and have compassion for yourself is it's like, it's the old adage of the stone thrown in the water, there's a ripple effect. But others take such courage from us when we say, yeah, this has been really hard, but I've done something hard. I'm here today. So I encourage everyone, no matter what your journey is or what stage you are in it, honor where you've been, honor what you've come through.
Well, and that kind of leads me to the idea of the practice of gratitude, right? Where you can see those baby steps are hard to see day by day, but when you can see over time, oh my gosh, I've come so far. And then you can see the amazing things that are happening around you that, sometimes it is hard to see through the pain how many things that you can be thankful for in your life.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And gratitude has been such a huge piece of my survival journey. And I kind of laugh about it. I joke about it because in the beginning, my gratitude wasn't like, oh, the flowers are pretty outside and my coffee cups in the sunlight, and I'm going to write down three things and be better. It was like my gratitude was almost rebellious. It was like, oh, I'm going to be grateful just because I'm not going to let this grief kill me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I would find things to be grateful for, but almost in a rebellious way, which thankfully it didn't stay in that place. I did become, a little more aware and truly grateful and letting it sink in.
You
But it
got to
did,
start somewhere.
it did start in a soft, pretty place. It was very
That's
raw.
okay. Teresa, thank you so much for your time. It was so lovely chatting with you.
Thank you, Hannah. Take care.
Of course, we'll have more information about Teresa and the Soul Talks podcast on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.